Welcome to the Manosphere Daily. Today we will see a few ladies grumbling about people in light of multiple factors and, in some cases, saying they would prefer to go with a bear. However, we will also see a lady crying over her separation, showing her strategy for healing. You know that, with her, everything revolves around money. We need to welcome you to crush that like button, support the movement, and subscribe to the channel. That's the main commitment we ask from you, man. Add your grain of sand to the movement, and leave your thoughts in the comments for any man who might need it. Without further ado, let's start.
8 months ago, I left a narcissistic relationship that was mentally and physically abusive. It rocked my world and made me question everything about myself. Once I finally was able to get out, I knew there was a deeper meaning behind this. That relationship brought me to my knees, but there at my rock bottom is where I found Jesus. I spent 5 months in isolation by myself with nothing or no one but God, my Bible, and me. I kept asking God to help me understand why I kept finding myself in toxic relationships. I wanted it to stop. During those 5 lonely months being alone, God told me to write a book and that He would help me share my message. I trusted Him, and because of that, within 2 months, I wrote my first book. It was the most liberating feeling of my life to share my story, and through sharing my story, God healed me. He gave me a purpose for my rock bottom. He turned my mess into a message, and now I am ready to share it with the world to help other people heal after a toxic relationship or get out if you're currently in one. If God could heal me through my situation, He can and will heal you. If this is you right now, let me encourage you that what you're about to go through will be your greatest breakthrough and your biggest blessing. I know you might not believe that right now, but God is going to use the mess you're in, and He's going to turn it around for your good. Trust me when I say you will have better days than the mess that you are currently in.
Crying on the web has become a cheap form of marketing. God directed and saved me from that victimizer, which is why I wrote a book about my experiences to help you as well. But isn't it better to go to a clinician? No, better come for my cheaper book because it has the best deal. But isn't a restraining order better? No, better come for my mentorship. I really have the answer to your concerns. Remember, it was God who answered me. I don't know who is more foolish, the person selling this cheap story or the person who buys it. Why do they always come out with a victimizer? I haven't seen a single woman in this country who hasn't divorced one, but rather than seeking genuine help, like going to the police or a clinician, the solutions are always a book, mentorship, or hosting events. The best of everything is recording themselves crying to seek attention. That's why I don't believe any of this, because if you're coping with your great suffering, then you're not really suffering at all. You were in a business cycle doing an internship. That's why people don't believe women who come with the victim story anymore. It's basically marketing for how they cope with this.
This is the story of what sent me into therapy. And it is a dilemma I still have not figured out the right answer to. I got married when I was 22 to my high school sweetheart, and I had been really close with his family for a long time. His mom was someone who I really looked up to. She owned her own business, and she was one of the few female role models that I had. Over the years, I eventually ended up working for her in her marketing agency. It started out great. I really loved the job and I liked working for her. And then over time, it just got worse and worse. Until one day I ended up finding something out about her that truly threw me into a spiral. And to this day, I don't know if I made the right decision. But this is the story. All of us at the marketing agency were in her email. Like, she logged us into her email on all of our computers. She was the face of the agency, so we would often correspond with clients and other people as her. One day, I was searching for something in her email, and I ended up coming across 13 years worth of emails with her and a lover. Now, remember, I was married to her son, and she was happily married to my husband at the time's dad. They had been married for, 20 or 30 years, and they had 4 kids. They were still married, but I found 13 years worth of emails between her and this guy. Here's the catch, is at the time I found it, it looked like the affair had ended 2 years ago. My husband's relationship with his mom meant everything to him. They were very close. And so my question was, what do I do? Like, do I say something to her? Do I tell my husband? Do I confront, like, do I say something to his dad? Think about everything that was weighing on this decision. Like, I could have potentially broken up a marriage, a family, ruined my career. I could have ruined my husband's relationship with his mom. There was just so much at stake. And I think the big thing was, like, it wasn't still going on. So what would you have done if you had been me in this situation?
Learning not to engage in issues that don't concern me, that's the problem with people, especially women who love to gossip. But it makes me laugh because one would wonder what she did, but watching the video we know she sang like a parrot. But notice something, most of these empowered and successful women typically cheat on their partners. These days, women are competing with men, they generally want to do everything a man does. That's why you see women in workplaces, the area now dominated by women. They see those male students, those men who still have a job and brothers, they won't hesitate to open their legs for them. Why do you think the stereotype of the boss sleeping with the secretary exists? It wasn't created out of nowhere. Now imagine a woman in a leadership position having control over all the men. She sees these young guys just out of college who will easily keep a job, and these women with money who give all kinds of gifts to him to ease her stress. Why do you think they never stay married long? They're in the most faithless careers, or many get married working brothers. Stereotypes exist for a reason. About this lady who let the cat out of the bag, I hope she's proud of destroying another woman, and then they talk about sisterhood. But it gets more difficult.
Breaks my heart when people get divorced and I hear that their kids are 1, 2, 3 years old. You know, you hear this thing where people say, oh, we didn't get divorced because of the kids. Like, it wasn't the kids' fault, but it kind of was. Parenting shook you. Like, parenting shook your marriage. Parenting revealed faults and cracks that maybe you didn't know were there. Well, it's not the kid's fault, but having a child might have been. I don't know that me and my husband sometimes would have made it if we weren't Christians, or if we didn't have a really big support system around us. Those first couple of years were hard. You're contemplating divorce and you're still in that stage where you have these young children at home. Just step back a little bit and think. And I also say this to the other people who are thinking about having children, thinking that everything's going to be great and dandy. Kids are amazing and fun and a wonderful, amazing gift from God, but it does not make things easier. It reveals weaknesses in you that you did not know were there. Kids are a blessing from God, but they are a challenge that reveal failures and that ultimately strengthen us, glorify God better, but we need to allow Him to work through it. Don't give up. It gets easier, but it gets harder first.
First, we all know that hormones in women bring many mood changes, particularly during and after pregnancy. Many women also end up somewhat damaged, separated from exhaustion, lack of sleep, and also the changes in their bodies. As a man, I advise all men to have a little patience with women. But men generally don't. The issue is that sometimes, as men, we focus only on a woman having a beautiful face and overlook other factors when choosing a woman to have kids with. A suggestion I give is to always watch your girlfriend's response when she is around children, normally nieces and nephews. If you see no maternal sense, if the children are upset to be around their auntie, if she's not tender, even if she says she wants to have children later on, be prepared. It might be a dispassionate desire, not the longing of a mother who truly wants to care for them. Above all, men, if your relationship with a woman isn't going well, if she doesn't approach you with respect, doesn't perform acts of service, isn't somewhat feminine with you, or doesn't show you appreciation, having a child will not improve that situation. It will only make it worse. Knowing how this country treats fathers, I would say, focus on the signs.
Easy is your answer, then honestly, I'm grateful that you've lived such a privileged life that your answer.
Hey bud, I can do one better for you. The reason I would pick the bear is because my husband used to be a criminal defense lawyer before he became a judge. And I always wondered why he was terrified about the thought of me walking around downtown Atlanta by myself after court and at night with my friends and things like that. And so he told me a little story. He told me a story about a man and a woman that were walking in downtown Atlanta, far away from every bear that you could possibly imagine. And a man with a gun came upon this couple and began to chase them. He shot the man in a leg, I think, and so he couldn't continue running. And while he was robbing the man, the woman continued to run to safety. She ran, she came across a railroad track, and the railroad track was surrounded by a fence, like a wire fence that you have to climb. And so to get away from the man with a gun that had just shot her husband that she was with, she climbed the fence, fell onto a railroad track where she broke her leg. She was laying there on a railroad track with a broken leg while her husband was, 100 yards or so away, being robbed by a man that had just shot him. Along come two men. And she says, please help me, my leg's broken, my husband is back there, he's been robbed, he's been shot. And the two men, both of them, proceeded to rape her. So tell me in what circumstance a woman wouldn't take the bear.
Favor a bear. It could be in this country or any country in the world. There are evil people, and this goes both ways. But to say that all men are what you just described is highly offensive. How about you also discuss that there was a man who put his body at risk to save his wife? The first response of his wife wasn't to try to help her husband but to help herself, leaving her husband for dead. I'm not blaming them, but in that scenario there was also a harmed man. Was this man also abusive? Was this man evil when he was giving his life for his wife? The woman ended up in a terrible situation. Who knows what kind of man she encountered after breaking her leg? It could have been one of those drifters sleeping in the train station who just live consuming substances and are mentally unstable. Of course, no one can assume that. But does this mean that all men are more dangerous to women than a bear, when today women live in a bubble created by men, have more rights thanks to men, and live in a city that protects them because of men? But because of isolated cases all men are bad, as if there aren't prisons that also house women who have armed men? Of course, not all women are guilty or blamed for being dangerous either.
And that wraps up today's episode of Manosphere Daily. If you enjoyed the content, give it a like. Be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you're notified as soon as a new video is out. Share your thoughts in the comments below. See you all tomorrow.